Well, thank everyone for joining us tonight at this very special program, the Hilchot Shabbos Refresher with Rabbi Shay Tahan. This very special 30-minute series will be every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. right here on chazak.org/live, chazaq.org/live. And following the format will be the Rabbi Tahan will speak for roughly like 20-25 minutes approximately, and then all the questions that people submitted in the chat box, which is right below, will be addressed by Rabbi Tahan. You can ask questions on any part of the laws of Shabbos, laws of Shabbat, Hilchot Shabbat, and it will be addressed right here. Just everyone, if you look right below your play button, if you look right below it, there's a chat box, and you can please submit any questions that you have. This entire series was initiated by one of the heads of Chazak organization, Lior Meira. We appreciate her ideas and her activism tremendous for the community, for Kollel Israel. The series being dedicated for Shalema of Anael Bat Rivka. She have a complete refuah Shalema Bakarov. And if anyone who's rewatching this, or if you don't want to put in the chat box, if it for some reason, you could also email us your questions. You can email us to events@chazak.org, and we will send it to the rabbi. We will send it to the rabbi, and he will address them. You can email us your questions as well to events@chazak.org. That is spelled events@chazaq.org. Events@chazak.org. And without no further ado, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, the chat box is right below. Please submit any questions, or you can email us at events@chazak.org. It's a great honor. We appreciate Rabbi Shay Tahan. He's the head of Beis Horaa in Brooklyn. People call him day and night for shilas, for questions. And he's right now he's the head of a Kollel. You write a sefer. We appreciate Rabbi Shay Tahan. Thank you so much.
Shalom Alechem, and thank you very much for having me. And special thanks for Chazak, and especially for Rabbi Abov, that's doing so much for Klal Israel all the time, non-stop. It's mamash, Yelchu Michael El Chayil. It doesn't stop, it doesn't end. Chazak u'baruch, and you should be matzliach in everything you're doing. Thanks again for everybody that are joining us tonight. We're going to have a refreshment course on Hilchot Shabbat. Every Wednesday, as Rabbi said, quick refreshment, 25 minutes, then we'll take some questions. We like to start today with an introduction. Today, less halachot, more introduction, some things that you might know and some things that might be new to you. First of all, we like to explain the importance of the day of the Shabbat. Things that could be that go over the head and you don't pay attention to them. But it's interesting to see all the details that pile up when we're dealing with the mitzvah of Shabbat. Shabbat is unique in a way that we don't find in any other mitzvot of the Torah. Now, I know that you heard so many times the idea of, this is the most important thing, this most important mitzvah, the worst avera, and so on and so forth. These are terms that are being used quite often, but when we're dealing with for Shabbat, it really is so. It's so much so that the Torah tells us that a person that doesn't keep Shabbat gets the worst punishment. As a person that keeps Shabbat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgives him for all his sins. Even a person that was Oved Avoda Zara, it says in the Gemara, Afilu Avoda Zara kedoro shel enosh, which means is the worst Avoda Zara, mochalim lo. He is forgiven if he keeps the Shabbat. Obviously, he has to stop doing whatever he's doing, but once he stops doing what he's doing, he is forgiven. One might ask whether it is with tshuva or without tshuva. That's a Taz question in the beginning of Hilchot Shabbat. He says that, of course, we're dealing with tshuva. So if it is with tshuva, you made tshuva over the Avodah Zarah sin, so what's the chidush? Of course, mochalim lo. The idea that Taz tells us over here is that normally, when a person sins a great sin like worshiping idols, he also, after that he does the teshuvah, still gets a punishment. He gets yisurim. It's called suffering. And Shabbat takes care of that. That is the chidush, which means once a person does teshuvah, even the worst sins of all, he would be forgiven to the point that he doesn't even get suffering for those averot that he did. So you see right away the importance of the day of Shabbat. Rashi explains to us in Chulin that Shabbat is equivalent to Avoda Zarah, which means there's two sins that excludes you from Klal Israel, which means a person that could keep the entire Torah, but he does one sin. What is it? He bows down to idols. He goes to worship idols. That's called Avoda Zarah. Even though he keeps the entire Torah, it excludes him from Klal Israel. He has the same laws as a goy, which means you can't join him up for a minyan. If he touches wine that is not cooked, it's considered yain nesech. If he shechs, his shechita is pasul. If he writes a Sefer Torah, the Sefer Torah is pasul, and so on and so forth. Not only Avodah Zarah, but also Shabbat. A person that violates the Shabbat, it's that important that we're saying that he would be excluded from Klal Israel just for being Mechalel Shabbat. Obviously, we're not talking about a person that makes a mistake. Sometimes he did Avera here, but that there, because he didn't realize that that was the Avera or he made a mistake. We're talking about somebody who cares less, and such a person is excluded from Klal Israel. You can't let him join a minyan. It's that severe. Now, when you take those laws, by the way, Rashi explains why is it that Shabbat is compared to Avodah Zarah? Because there's two things that we found that comes to knock, so to speak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avodah Zarah, when a person worship idols, it, so to speak, it seems like he doesn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He believes in different powers instead. And when a person is Mechalel Shabbat, it shows that he doesn't believe that Hashem created the world, because Shabbat represents that the world was created in 6 days. Many people believe that the world will always existed, or it's there already for billions of years or millions of years. Shabbat comes to say that the world was created, as the Torah explains, in 6 days, and the 7th day Hashem rested. So that represents, this is how all the Rishonim explain, Shabbat represents the fact that Hashem created the world. It's called Olam Mechudash. It's a new world. It's not something that was there forever. So therefore, because of that, we found so many different laws about the Shabbat that we don't find in other places. For example, on Shabbat, besides the fact that it's asur to make the melachot of Shabbat, 39 melachot you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. And a person that does a melacha violates a aseh and a lo ta'aseh, and not only one. It says in the Torah, Vayom hashvi'i tishbot. It's a positive commandment. On the 7th day, you should be shovet. You should keep the Shabbat. You should stop from doing those lametet melachot, the 39 laws that we will learn. And then it says as well, also elav, lo ta'aseh kol melacha. One should not participate in doing, should not act on doing a melacha on Shabbat. That's a violation of Shabbat. One is not allowed to do that. There's a lav and there's a aseh. The punishment that, as I said before, is the worst of all. It's karetz, it's sekila. It piles up a lot of dinim to show you how strict it is to violate the Shabbat. And I already explained before that on the other side of the coin, you would be so much rewarded for keeping the Shabbat. Keeping the Shabbat is considered very, very high. So much so that the Chafetz Chaim gives a mashal, a parable, to a person that had a store, and on top of the store, obviously, there was a sign saying whatever he was selling. Let's say it was a wine store, so it said on top, wine, liquor. One time, the store was closed. People passed by, they saw the store was closed. Said, okay, probably the merchant, the store owner is out. Maybe it's in vacation, maybe he's not feeling well, maybe something else. Next day they came, again, the store was closed. Day in and day out, it's been already a few weeks and the store is closed. But nobody's sure. Is the store really just temporarily closed? The person went to vacation, or he finally decided to close up the store and not reopen again. In the end, one day they passed by and they saw that the sign on top was removed. Once the sign on top was removed, they understood very clearly that now the store is closed permanently. So says the Chafetz Chaim, the Shabbat is the sign. When we do something wrong here, something wrong there, people sometimes fail on different tasks. Sometimes people they don't do things correctly. Sometimes they sin, all kind of things. But you're still considered part of Klal Yisrael. You're still considered a child of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're still part of it. But when you take off the sign, that shows that you're not interested to be any more part of that family called the family of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Klal Yisrael. What is the sign? Says the Chafetz Chaim, that's the Shabbat. When a person has the Shabbat, it's a sign that shows I'm still with you. I might make mistakes, many mistakes. I might sin. I might do very bad things, but I'm still with you. I'm part of you. Taking off the sign shows that I'm not interested to be part of Klal Yisrael, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, we found in Shabbat, besides the fact that it's asur to do melacha, there's mitzvot taseh on Shabbat and mitzvot lo taseh on Shabbat. What is the mitzvah? The lo taseh, we explained. The person that violates one of those lametet melachot, that's a lo taseh. That's a don't do. Lo taseh means a don't do, violation, transgressing the Shabbat that you're not allowed to do. That's the lo taseh. What is the aseh? Where do we find the aseh? That it says on the Shabbat. Shabbat, we found the kiddush, to be mekadesh the Shabbat. Zachor, v'shamor, you pick up the wine and you say kiddush, that's a mitzvah taseh, to remember the Shabbat. That's called Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho. And it was connected to the shamor. Shamor is the lo taseh. We'll speak about this in the future as well. But what we found on Shabbat that we don't find pretty much other places is the fact that one is commended not only on himself, but on his entire family. He must make sure that his family doesn't violate the Shabbat. Like for instance, it says for his children, Lo ta'aseh kol melacha, ata bincha uvitecha. Make sure not to do a melacha on Shabbat, not to violate the Shabbat. Not only you, but also your boys and your girls. Very interesting. We don't find these other places. Other places it says that you're not allowed to give your child something. Actively, you're not allowed to cause your child to violate the Torah, which means if you give him, let's say, something that's treif, that's not kosher, that is the asur, lo ta'achilum, it says. But if he does some avera by himself, that's that. I'm not connected to that. I'm not linked to that. On the mitzvah of Shabbat, I am linked to that. It says, lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata uvincha uvitecha. I have to make sure that my children as well don't do melacha. But not only my children. When they used to be slaves, it says on the slave as well, bayom hashvi'i tishbot ve'infosh ben amatecha ve'ager asher b'sharecha, which means also your slaves at the time that they were slaves, you were mechuyav, you were obligated to make sure that your slaves are keeping Shabbat as well. You're not allowed to have the slave doing something on Shabbat. The slave wants to cook coffee on Shabbat. He wants to boil water and make himself coffee. Not allowed. You tell him you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. Unlike a worker that you have a worker, let's say, on Shabbat in your house. Somebody who's coming to take care of the kids is a goy. Somebody that comes to babysit the kids, let's say, they want to boil water for themselves to make coffee. You're not obligated. He's not your slave. He works for you. But when there were slaves, you were obligated to make sure that he himself as well doesn't violate the Shabbat. But more stunning is that not only your children, not only yourself, not only your children, not only your slaves, but also your animal must keep Shabbat. Imagine, it says in the Torah, Lema yanuach shocha v'chamorcha kamocha. Unbelievable. One must make sure that his animal does not work on Shabbat. You can't let your animal do all kinds of tasks on Shabbat. On Shabbat, they have to rest. Very beautiful. So we found this in various places. Beit Shammai also elevates this even higher, even more extreme. This machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Some poskim, by the way, posek like Beit Shammai. What is that? They say not only you, not only your children, bincha v'itcha, not only your slaves, not only your animals, but also your utensils. It's called Shvitat Kelim. Isn't that beautiful? Shvitat Kelim, according to Beit Shammai, your utensils can do melacha on Shabbat, which means, again, this is not the halacha, although some poskim bring it down. The Eliyahu Rabbah, Kaf brings down like that. Lemaaseh, we'll speak about this maybe in the future, but imagine you want to have your air conditioner working on Shabbat. You turned it on before Shabbat, but on Shabbat, it's pumping cold air. Not allowed to have that. It's your air conditioner. It's kelim. It's your utensil. It has to rest. You have something on Shabbat that's electronic that is working on Shabbat, like we all do. You have the light on. Something like that. According to Beit Shammai, it's your utensil. You're not allowed to have that doing melacha. Now again, we don't hold like Beit Shammai in that particular thing of Shvitat Kelim. But at least we'll learn from this how strict Shabbat is, how beautiful Shabbat is, how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes Shabbat seriously. It's no game. He goes in all across the board on making sure that Shabbat is kept by all parts of your family and everything else that belongs to you. On Shabbat, we have a mitzvah to remember the day of the Shabbat. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekacho. As we said before, how do you remember the Shabbat? How you perform the mitzvah of remembering on Shabbat? It says to make a kiddush. When you make a kiddush, then you mention Shabbat and you remember the Shabbat. But that is true on Shabbat. But there are poskim, there are rishonim, the Ramban writes that the mitzvah of remembering the Shabbat is not only for Shabbat, but also throughout the week. Every day during the week, one must remember the Shabbat. And he says that's why you're not allowed to call the days of the Shabbat names. He says you're not allowed to call Sunday, Sunday, Monday, Monday. No, in Lashon HaKodesh it calls Yom Rishon. What's Yom Rishon? The first day to the seventh day, to the Shabbat day. So you remember when you say Yom Rishon, the first day, first of what? First of the circle of the 7 days. And therefore, Monday is considered in Lashon HaKodesh Yom Shani. Some poskim take it so that Ramban to as far as to say that one is not allowed to call those days in the names, in the English names or other names, because you have to call. It's a mitzvah deoraita of Schirat HaShabbat, says the Ramban. You have to remember the Shabbat by saying today's the first day of the week, the second day of the week, third day of the week. You count in the days to the week, to the Shabbat, to remember the Shabbat. When you do that, the reminder of Shabbat comes about. Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai argued whether a person that receives something very delicious, somebody got a beautiful pack of chocolate during the week. So that pack of chocolate is delicious. He wants to bite into it. There's machloket whether you should keep it for the Shabbat or even a good food. Definitely something delicious like chocolate or something else that you could keep for the Shabbat. You don't need to eat it today. You keep that special for the Shabbat. Why is that? Because by doing that, you're honoring the Shabbat. The mitzvah of honoring the Shabbat doesn't have to be necessarily only on Shabbat. In mitzvah of Shabbat, we spoke about all these special dinim of Shabbat, but there's also another din on Shabbat, and that is oneg and kavod Shabbat. You have two things that we don't find any other place. Oneg Shabbat, you have to pleasure the Shabbat. On a holiday, on the Tri Regalim, it says, V'samachta b'chagecha, you should be happy on your holiday. But there's no din to pleasure the holiday. Kavod Shabbat. And oneg Shabbat, we found on Shabbat, as the Torah, as it says in the Navi, in Yeshaya, im tashim mishabat reglecha sot chafatzecha b'yom kodshi, on the seventh day, v'karata la-Shabbat oneg, you should call the Shabbat pleasurable. Mikdosh Hashem mechubad, you honor the Shabbat, v'chibato me'asod rochecha mitzok leftecha. So we see, and by the way, some learn that this pasuk is deoraita. It's the Nevi'im can't be mechadesh. They're not allowed to be mechadesh dinim. So how the Navi Yeshaya said something over here, once the Torah was given, וזאת התורה שאין נביא רשאי לחדש דבר מעתה. Nobody is allowed to add dinim. You're allowed to say things that are derabanan. But over here with the verse of whim, so they say that really this is a command of the Torah. The Navi just mentions it as a reminder, but the Torah obligates us to honor the Shabbat and to pleasure the Shabbat. So that is a beautiful thing. How do you pleasure the Shabbat? How do you honor the Shabbat? You make sure that on Shabbat, by the way, there's a difference between honoring the very basic difference between honoring and pleasuring the Shabbat is honoring is something that you prepare from before Shabbat. So that means you clean up the house, you set up the table, you light the candles, and everything that you prepare for Shabbat, you wear nice clothing, sut nekiah, and all these things are considered kavod Shabbat. You are honoring the Shabbat when you do that. What about pleasuring the Shabbat, honoring Shabbat? That you do on Shabbat itself. On Shabbat, the person eats good. So the fact he eats good pleasures the Shabbat. We don't find these other places to honor, to pleasure the day or pleasure yourself at a certain time. So therefore, a person eats good, a person sleeps good. Some people get a lot of pleasure from hearing Divrei Torah. You go to a shiur, that's a very important thing. From reading Divrei Torah, you have your children around your table. You listen to your children. Finally, they have their father and around the table. So not so many fathers get to see their children so much around the week. They're always on the run. They're always going and coming. They don't have time. Now it's time to sit down with your children and spend time. It's called quality time. Quality time. You listen to what your children have to say. They have the need. Children have the need to connect with their father. And if they don't have the father throughout the week, which is something wrong. Don't get me wrong. The father has to be available for his children through the week as well. But at least the Shabbat is a day that they connect to their father. They can talk to their father. The father can listen to them. The father can tell them some things, teach them the right way, tell them a Dvar Torah, listen to what they learned in school, sing together, spend time together. And same thing with the mommy. When they're together with the mommy's huffing and puffing throughout the week. There's so many things to do around the house, so many chores around the house, cooking and this and taking baths. Comes the Shabbat, everything is shut down, the whole house shuts down, everybody sits on the table, and it's time that you sing and you rejoice and you spend time together. And it's time of spending time with your family and with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a connection time. That's a beautiful thing. This is only a very, very short introduction. There's so much more just for an introduction. But since our time is up, we said 25 minutes, so we try to keep up to the time. I would love to see if there's anybody that would want to ask us questions. We would love to take questions. You can write the questions on the chat, and I'll try to see whether I can pick it up. I'm not sure that I know how to do that yet, but we'll learn from here something that we don't find in other places. I like to mention, meanwhile, until people come up with their questions, that we do find something very interesting, unlike many other places in the Torah, and that is that the Torah tells us only in various places the laws of the 39 laws of the Shabbat. We don't find this many places. It says in 4 places only. Charisha, it says, Ktsira, Avarat Esh, and the Isur of Otzah mireshut lereshut. All other 35 melachot are not written in the Torah. How do you learn them? You learn them because they are written close to the building of the Mishkan. So we learn from here that everything that you're not allowed to do on the Mishkan, you're not allowed, or everything you do on the Mishkan normally, you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. So all the buildings of the Mishkan, all the constructions and everything that was done in the Mishkan, Chachamim took and they saw whatever it is, and they said on Shabbat that would be Asur. Now, obviously, it's not the Chachamim said it, it's the Torah that said it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said everything to Moshe Rabbeinu. But the hint to that, everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Moshe Rabbeinu in Har Sinai is hinted in the Torah somewhere. Where is it hinted? It's hinted in that I said. Since it says the Isur of Shabbat, the Isur of doing melachot on Shabbat, near the binyan of the Mishkan and near the things that were done in the Mishkan, all those things, piled up, and they said, oh, this is what Moshe Rabbeinu received in Har Sinai. Yeah. He received that you're not allowed to sow on Shabbat. Oh, in the Mishkan, they used to sow because they had to sow the yeriot, the curtains. Now we see that Moshe Rabbeinu received in Har Sinai from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we learn it from what was done in the Mishkan. Oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu not to plow on Shabbat, Melechet Choresh. Oh, now we see he had to plow in the Mishkan. What for? Because in order to make the Lechem HaPanim, the Lechem HaPanim is the bread that was given every Shabbat, every Shabbat, on the Shulchan, in the Mishkan, in Beit HaMikdash. You had to prepare the grain. How do you prepare the grain? You plow and you plant, and then you wait for it to grow and you harvest it, and you do all the melachot. All those melachot are not permitted to do on Shabbat. I can't pick up where the question should be, but I think we made our short introduction, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we will meet again next week. Chazak u'baruch, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Rabbi, could we, in the chat box over here, let me just see if I don't know if you see it on your end or not, but
I don't know where to look for it. That's the problem.
Below I could just read it if you want.
Okay.
So one question someone says is, I want to invite some guests to my house for Shabbat, for Shabbos, but some of them don't keep Shabbat. So what is the law? Because some of them after the meal, they probably want to drive home. So what is the on the one hand we want to do Kira, we want to show them the beauty of Shabbos. The other hand, we don't want to maybe we want to encourage them, whatever. So what's the law?
So let me just give you just a shout out before I answer this, and that is any questions you might have, you probably would be able to find it on one of my shiurim. How do you find my shiurim? You can look for them in Torah anytime. Look under my name, Shay Tahan, and you can write, if you try it, and you write over there, inviting guests for Shabbat or something like that, you'll find the answers to all those questions. So what I said in the shiur, that exactly that question in the shiur I explained, and by the way, the shiurim are short, 3, 4, 5 minutes shiurim, gets you the point, straight to the point, straight to the idea, and you know what the halacha is. Over here, there are poskim that say that one should not invite a guest for Shabbat. I mentioned the poskim over there, Moshe and others. And the reason is, as you understand, that you're not allowed to cause others to violate the Shabbat. And even it's worse, says Rabbi Eliashiv, that because you educated them that you want to show the beauty of Shabbat, you're allowed to step on and tramp the Shabbat in order to show them the beauty of the Shabbat. But although there are those that are machmir, as I explained, but there are those that are Mikhail Rav Steinbuch, which normally is very much machmir. He writes in Tshuvot V'Anagot that it's permitted. For few reasons you can say that it's permitted. First of all, the fact that you are bringing them to your house, that 2-3 hours, those 2-3 hours they'll be spending with you on Shabbat, they'll probably be home, turning on the TV, cooking something to eat, going out with the car, smoking cigarettes in the balcony. So all those 3 hours, they're not doing that. So that's a beautiful thing. Although they leave afterwards, but those 3 hours, they were keeping Shabbat around your presence. Secondly, there's Rav Steinbuch gets into the isur of what is the isur? Do not cause others to make a sin. He says if the purpose is to prevent people from making a sin, you're trying to show them the Shabbat in order for them to stop violating the Shabbat. So therefore, that doesn't fall into the category of a violation of Lifnei Ve'lo Titen Mikshol. But what I tell people when they ask me that question is that you should always tell your guests, look, I have a room for you. I have a room for you. If you like to stay, you are welcome to stay. When you do that, you took from yourself all obligations of what they are planning to do next. You gave them the opportunity, you gave them the way to keep the Shabbat, you can stay here. We'll have a beautiful meal tomorrow morning. You can join us for the Shabbat. If they didn't stay, that's already up to them. So therefore, one should invite the guests for Shabbat, even though he knows they'll be driving back. And it's much preferable to tell them that they should stay and he has a room for them ready.
Okay, amazing answer. And I don't know if you see the other questions, but another question someone says is, can you think thoughts of chol on Shabbos, meaning like weekday activities? Maybe meaning let's just say not even getting into, let's just say business, like think about business. Let's just say your activity, you're gonna get together with your sister on Motzei Shabbos for pizza, or you have an upcoming algebra test or whatever it is. Thinking about weekday thoughts.
Amazing question. This question, I made a class on this last week. And in the class, I explained that normally thinking on Shabbat things are permitted because it says, Dibur asur, hirur mutar. You're allowed to be me'arher, you're allowed to think about anything you want on Shabbat. But there is an aspect that it says in Rashi and Chazal, and it's brought down in the Halacha in Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Vav, that you kol melachtecha ke'asuim. One should not think and worry about his work on Shabbat. Because when you get to Shabbat, you might think, I have this to do tomorrow and I have this to do this week. I have so much business, and you try to think, it worries you. It causes, Shabbat has two kinds of resting, menucha. One is menuchat haguf and one is menuchat hanefesh. When you are resting to the point that your mind is resting as well, that's a real relaxation, a real Shabbat, a beautiful thing. You relax your mind. And therefore, Chachamim tell us, you kol melachtecha ke'asuim. How could you rest your mind if you think, I finished everything I need to do? I don't have it. You have to train yourself to think, I don't have to do anything. I'm done. By Friday, I finished all my businesses, all the million things that I have to do. Then Motzei Shabbat, you will come up again. But on Shabbat, you should have menuchat hanefesh and menuchat haguf.
Amazing. And there's another last. If anyone submits a reminder, if anyone has any questions, submit them in the chat box right below, or email events@chazak.org. Last question we have over here is, what do we do with children that continue to open lights on Shabbat even after parents discuss it with them?
So I'll tell you what. I'll answer you very shortly, but this deserves a class by itself, 30 minutes by itself. This already goes into not Shabbat laws, but rather chinuch. You have to know. Chinuch, Shabbat is a beautiful thing, but you have to know how to approach it when you come to children. When you are coming to nag on the Shabbat, keep Shabbat, do Shabbat. What are you violating the Shabbat? What are you lighting? They're not gonna like Shabbat. They're gonna hate Shabbat, and you scream at them, even if they'll keep Shabbat now when they're young. As soon as they can get out of the house or do things when you don't see, they'll stop keeping Shabbat. The idea of Shabbat is to make Shabbat beautiful, pleasurable, family harmony. They should love the Shabbat. They should wait for the Shabbat. They should say that Shabbat is so sweet, it's so delicious. That is our goal. So if your kid puts on the light on the Shabbat, doesn't do anything. Nobody cares about that. Not even a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Nobody cares. What a Kadosh Baruch Hu cares is that you're going to install in your kids the love of the Shabbat, the sweetness of Shabbat. That is very, very in short. Remember, everything in the Torah is like that. When your kid does a violation of the Torah, it doesn't make a difference what it is. Don't forget and don't take your eyes from the goal. The goal is not that they should not violate the Torah or violate the Shabbat. The goal is to make the laws of the Shabbat and laws of the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu sweet, that eventually, in 10 years from now, in 5 years from now, who knows when, they're going to remember Shabbat, Torah, Yiddishkeit is sweet. That is the main goal. Don't lose focus. This is our goal.
Okay, amazing. I think it was a tremendous start for this amazing series. Thank you, Rabbi Tahan, for taking the time to do this. Everyone should again. Please tell your friends about this amazing series. Please email us for the recording of this part, and please join us every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on chazak.org/live. Everyone should submit your questions. You could submit them during the week, and they'll be addressed in the series or upcoming, email us at events@chazak.org, events@chazaq.org. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you again, Rabbi Tahan.
Thank you very much. Good night.